Greetings. I'm Scott Raecker, Executive Director of the Robert D. and Billy Ray Center at Drake University. The mission of the Ray Center is to improve civility through character development and ethical leadership. Governor Ray believed that if we enhanced our character competencies and our ethical leadership, that civility would be an outcome. We started our work in 1997 with one fifth grade classroom using the Character Counts framework. And today, we're the global home for Character Counts, serving over 8 million youth worldwide. We work from the preschool environment to the corporate, community, and public service arenas with an inspiration to transform lives and strengthen communities. Through this work, we honor the legacy of Governor and Mrs. Ray's lifelong commitment to positively impacting the lives of others. Today, we're honored to have with us Steve Zumbach. Steve is a decorated lawyer and community leader who has a unique perspective on Governor Ray's leadership with nearly 5 decades of friendship and working together to solve challenging issues. We've asked Steve to share his reflections on Governor Ray's leadership. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Thank you. I knew and worked with Governor Ray for almost 5 decades. We met in 1968 when I was a senior in high school and had just been elected state FFA president. He was running for governor. And during my year as a state FFA president and the year that followed, I worked with Governor Ray on proposals to restructure the governance and to reallocate funding for vocational programs and organizations like FFA. It was during that time that I got to observe Governor Ray's collaborative leadership style and what could be accomplished under his form of leadership. In 1971, I was elected a national officer of Future Farmers of America. I introduced the governor as a keynote speaker at the national convention. Over 15,000 members were in attendance. During the year that I was a national officer, I was in the state of Ohio when 4 Kent State University students were shot and killed during a protest about the Vietnam War. I went to Kent State University, talked to the students and talked to community members about what had happened. And what was clear at that time is that our country was deeply divided about the Vietnam War. I also learned by what happened at Kent State that insightful speech could have serious consequences. I learned that student leaders and government leaders needed to speak and work in a reasonable and rational way, and that true leaders had the capability of working collaboratively and to find solutions to problems. Then in 1971, I was elected student body president at Iowa State University. During my year of service in serving as governor, serving as student body president at Iowa State, passions and emotions were running high. What I learned is that we needed to speak respectfully and not in an insightful way. And because of Governor Ray's calm demeanor, collaborative style of leadership, students were permitted and enabled to express themselves in free and open forums about their concerns about our country and about our world. As a student body president, I also had the opportunity to work with Governor Ray on funding for the state universities. And during that time, I began to understand Governor Ray's deep commitment to education for all Iowans at all levels, K through 12, area community colleges, private colleges, and public universities. Governor Ray understood that if Iowans had a high quality of education, that the citizens of our state would be able to provide for their families, have a good quality of life, and if they made enough money, that they could get back to their community and state. In 1973, Governor Ray invited me to his office to talk about an appointment to the State Board of Regents. I was a student at Iowa State at the time. He was under an immense amount of pressure to appoint a student regent. During the meeting, the governor said, I am not going to appoint a student regent, but what I will do is appoint you as one of 9 Iowans to represent all Iowans. He went on to state that it was important that the Board of Regents not be politicized by having its members represent particular constituencies. And he said, although you're a student, Stephen, you will represent all Iowans. And the governor meant it by the tone of his voice. The Board of Regents, during my tenure, the Board of Regents, the state of Iowa passed a public employee collective bargaining bill. The Board of Regents believed that if the faculty or the staff members at the universities organized a union, that it should be a separate union and not part of a statewide union. Governor Ray took a different position. Governor Ray felt if the regents elected to have, if staff or faculty elected to have a union, that it should be part of the statewide union. And because of his disagreement with the regents, he asked to meet with us. What I observed during that public meeting was that leaders who conduct themselves in a calm and respectful way by articulating their positions and then listening to others in the room, that they could work out solutions, which is what we did during that meeting and the time that followed. During that period of service on the State Board of Regents, I learned much about Governor Ray's collaborative leadership style. Later, I learned in 1975 that Governor Ray led with a strong moral compass. In 1975, the Thai Dam, a tightly knit group of refugees from Laos, were suffering severe persecution. Governor Ray recognized that, invited 3,500 members of the Thai Dam refugees to come to Iowa. In 1979, Governor Ray learned about the plight of refugees from Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, and they were referred to as the boat people. They were under immense amount of persecution and almost certainly would have been killed if they stayed on the mainland. They had no alternatives, no place to go. And what they did is took whatever vessels they could find and they left the land and went to sea. Some of them left in nothing more than a carved out barrel, facing almost certain death. Then President Gerald Ford asked all 50 governors to take some of the refugees to their respective states. Governor Ray was the only governor that stepped up and invited refugees, and he invited 1,500 of them to come to Iowa. Based on those two experiences, I observed that Governor Ray had a strong moral compass as a leader and had a commitment to do what was morally right rather than doing what was politically expedient. Few leaders have or had a stronger moral compass than Governor Ray. I helped raise money for the park where the Robert D. Ray Gardens, Asian Gardens, are located on the Des Moines River. The park preserved the memory. The Asian Gardens preserved the memory of Robert Ray and Billy Ray and what they did for the refugees. In 1977, I began my career at what is the Bellin Law Firm. Practiced law there for the rest of my entire career. In 1997, when Art Davis resigned as mayor because he was dealing with terminal cancer, Bob Ray once again stepped up and agreed to become the interim mayor. In classic Bob Ray style, almost immediately, he began to solve problems. That included the relocation of the Martin Luther King Highway. It was classic Bob Ray. When duty called, Governor Ray stepped up, and then he did whatever needed to be done to get the job done. As a community leader, I had the opportunity to work with Governor Ray in the years that followed on issues involving the revitalization of our downtown. And today we enjoy a better city because of those efforts with Governor Ray. As I reflect back to when I met Governor Ray as a senior in high school and working with him during the decades which followed, we addressed many important issues facing our community and state. At age 71, I've just retired from the Bellin McCormick firm and had a rich and rewarding career, and also having had the opportunity over 4 decades working on many community projects. I was able to help build a better community and state because Governor Ray was my mentor and he was my friend. He helped me develop the leadership skills that enabled me to lead in a collaborative way, which enabled me to help get things done. We could all learn much from the life and leadership of Governor Ray. I'm grateful for having had the opportunity to have met him, to have worked with him, and to have known him.
Steve, I want to thank you so much for giving some intentional time over the last several weeks to reflect on the influence and impact of Governor Ray and his leadership style. You gave examples of both the tie dam and the boat people. Those were not politically expedient decisions in Iowa at the time, at the height of a farm crisis. People were very unhappy about that, and that these, at the time, political refugees would be coming to Iowa at a time that we were already under great stress. But he did it not because it was the right political thing. He did it because it was the right thing to do. I heard him say more than once, these people were dying. If we didn't open our doors, who would? And what would we want someone to do if it was us on the other side of that? I think, and you probably sensed, I'm just trying to draw one last question out of this with you, is that moral compass that he demonstrated. I saw it in the mayor's office when he was there, in his governorship, really was a guiding. It wasn't just when it was expedient. It was when it was the right thing to do. And you'd mentioned that.
And that's difficult for political leaders to do. That's not how you win elections.
Right.
Matter of fact, it's how you lose elections.
And it is a different environment today.
And what Bob Ray did throughout his public service is he did the right thing. And at the end of his service, Iowans began to understand that and appreciate that. And there wasn't the resentment. It's, well, we disagreed with the governor and we'll move forward. But at the time those decisions were made, emotions were running extremely high. And the contentiousness and the courage during what was really the end, but where emotions were higher than they'd ever been, to bring Asian people to Iowa that virtually had no Asian population, to a white Protestant state. Of all the governors that had a platform to do it, we probably had one of the lowest platforms in terms of public acceptance than any state. And he did it because it was the right thing to do. And leaders in our country, in our democracy, and why the United States has stood as a beacon of light is that historically, our leaders, although they didn't get there quickly or easily, ultimately our leaders did the right thing. And they morally led, even though it might lead to their defeat in the next election. That's what Bob Ray did.
I want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time to share with us and our listeners, because as we look at a country that is divided today and polarized, it's not the first time that's happened. And there have been great leaders that have come forward at every time in our country's history to help us through these times. And I'm convinced with leaders like yourself and Governor Ray that we can move through and continue to build a more perfect union. So I thank you for your time, and I wish you the very best of continued success, and enjoy your retirement.